Good afternoon, Bloomers, and welcome to another episode of AfterBloom. This is segments that we've done since very early on with BloomTube, where we talk to one bloomer or a group of bloomers or a couple of bloomers, and we find out a little bit about them and what's brought them to bloom, where they came from, and what bloom inspires in them. And today we will be talking with my friend Jack McClellan, and he is our Bloom treasurer, and it's wonderful to have him here. Good afternoon, Jack.
Thank you, Russ.
Jack, tell us a little bit about you and where you come from and your faith history.
Okay, I'm a Chicagoan, born and bred. Probably one of the very few bloomers. I am born and bred also United Church of Christ. I was baptized at the First Congregational Church of Jefferson Park in Chicago. My parents moved to the western suburbs, and I belonged to the Congregational Church in Elmhurst from the early 50s until I went off to college. We returned, coming back to church after I met Mike, and also returned to the United Church of Christ in Chicago, Bethany United Church of Christ. So I'll never forget my very first day at Bloom. I met Ruth Durant and discovered that she also is a lifelong United Church of Christ member. So we traded stories going back to the time when a merger and all that good stuff with the ENR. So it was a very good welcome to bump into somebody else, because there aren't too many of us.
No, there aren't too many of you. No, there aren't. But it's nice to have those that are there in our congregation, because it, we can learn the history.
Yeah.
The rest of us.
Well, like many people my age, I guess, after college, I kind of fell away from the church. And then after I came out, never quite felt that as a gay man there'd be a place or home in a church. And then it was the United Church of Christ bouncer ad. I don't know if any of you ever saw it on television back in the, I think it was the late 90s, of a bouncer not letting people in church if they weren't the right color, they weren't the right marital status, they weren't the right sexual orientation. And I'm watching that going, oh, I think that's the church I went to. So we searched out a United Church of Christ near us, and that was that was about 2000, I should say, excuse me. And so I've been steady going to UCCs, back to UCC, since about 2000.
Nice. Now, how did you folks find Bloom?
For us, it was relatively easy. Bill Bordenaro, who you will all be enjoying as a guest pastor in August. I think it's August 12th. I could be wrong on that date. We met Bill. He was the pastor at Bethany United Church of Christ. We became friends with him. And he and his husband moved out here in 2013. And in just chatting and maintaining our friendship, I asked him, well, did you find a church out here? Now, both Bill and John are retired pastors. Bill is of the UCC, and John is from the ELCA. And they don't want to put their standing as pastors in jeopardy, so they go to the Episcopal Church and don't belong to any. And they see that as a compromise. But long story to get there, I said, well, okay, that's fine for you, but I want to go to UCC. He immediately recommended Bloom. He had visited Bloom a couple times, said, I think you will like it. Turned out he was absolutely correct. So it was it was the introduction from the friend. But in truth, I Googled. I went up, looked up open and affirming churches, Pound Springs, and to the credit of Bloom, you were the first church that came up. And nice. A couple of others did come up, and we did visit. We did some church shopping, like a lot of folks do, but ultimately settled on coming and joining Bloom.
Nice. Bloom, to me, Bloom is just, it's a unique place that is not like any other congregation or faith-based organization that I've ever belonged to. Now, I'm not UCC lifer, I come from a different background, so I say that coming from the background I've come from, because, you know, when you don't know UCC, I think you can, you know, and when you come from other backgrounds, there's a lot of bad out there. And that's not to say that all UCCs are good, because I've learned that lesson the hard way as well, because there's some up in the far corners of our U.S. that are not very open and affirming, but we are, and we have wonderful people like Jack, our treasurer. And, you know, tell us, Jack, what does Bloom inspire in you?
I'm sorry for your experience. Mike and I were blessed. We had a wonderful experience joining Bethany and meeting Bill Bordenero. And that experience was magnified when we moved to the far western suburbs of the Chicago metropolitan area and joined a very small UCC church in West Chicago, St. Michael's United Church of Christ. And when I say very small, Easter Sunday we were happy to have 35 people. A typical Sunday, if we had 20, we were going, my goodness, what are we going to do with everybody? But it was a very interesting experience. It was where we truly understood what a welcoming church was. I think Mike and I were the very first gay couple, maybe even gay people, to darken the door, if you will, or openly gay. And they were already open and affirming. They became open and affirming without having any gay members, and they really put it to work. Nice. And to play and into operation. So we experienced that. And I'm not being very articulate because it is difficult to say what it means to be welcoming. Every church says welcome. There's something organic about the way it happened at St. Michael's that we were introduced, that we felt. Of course, it was also a little bit two new people, oh boy, somebody else to get involved. Mm-hmm. And Mike and I are the kind of people, obviously, I've been here, 2 years, and I'm already treasurer. But anyway, what does it mean to me? It's the continuation of that. It's an affirmation that this kind of church and faith-based group has existed all along. We perhaps have been too quiet about it. We perhaps, as those who profess a more liberal and progressive and open and affirming form of theology, we let others speak for our religion. They're not speaking for us, but they speak for our religion. And what struck me as coming here is there is a feeling among everyone I've talked to at Bloom that we almost want to, go shout it from the mountain.
Yeah.
That Jesus Christ is born, and he don't come to our church, but we do the best to make sure he's going to be welcome when he comes, kind of thing. There's something that comes through at Bloom that way that I hope Mike and I are adding to. But it is that continuation of that. I know it's out there. And it seems like with the people, we're continuing having new members joining Bloom, that we are doing this. I wish there was a way I could, again, describe what it is that we do that's different than others. But as I said earlier, you go to a church, everybody says, oh, you're welcome here, and they are nice. But when you're going to be affirmed, when you're going to be more than just welcomed, that you're going to be wanted.
Yeah, it's a feeling, I think it's a feeling that you get. I went to UCC in Sacramento when my son was in hospital, and they were all very lovely there. They were all very nice, and they had a welcome table, but it was like, here's your bulletin, go find a seat. And it's not that way at Bloom. It's a lot more engaging.
Well, I know for Mike and I, we've taken the initiative at every church we go to. The first Sunday we go, when they talk about a fellowship hour, we go.
Yeah.
What's different about Bloom, the people say how you raise your hand when you're new and whatnot. And I wish I could remember who it was I was sitting next to. Leaned over, and you're saying, the peace and whatnot. I said, I certainly hope you will come sit with us in fellowship. And not that I'm afraid to go walk in and meet anybody and talk to anybody, but it was nice to know, sit with us.
Yes.
Of course, then by the time I got the food and turned around, I forgot what they looked like. So I
Yeah.
remember who I was going to sit with. So I sat down with the Durants, and hence the conversation, and the rest,
Yeah.
shall we say, is history.
Yeah, and I think that is what does bring people back are those little moments, and when you're engaged right off in a very warm and friendly manner, and it feels sincere, it makes you.
I use the term church family.
Yeah.
I've always used that, and there is that feeling here. It's there. The members that I have met are of a family. The way I look at them, we all have strengths. We all have areas where we could be improved. Family, you take it all.
Yes.
I love Rev Kev's statement. You go with who you have and do the best you can. And that really gives you the opportunity to have everybody to contribute to Bloom.
Yes.
And we all have abilities that we can give to this organization, and support each other while we do that.
Exactly.
And as something I could add, coming in as treasurer a year and a half ago now. Wow, only 5 months after joining Bloom, it was daunting. Following behind Jim Nixon, who was an incredible treasurer.
Yes.
I'm going, oh, now what do I do? How do I live up to this standard that's been set? And the support I have received in this role, and congratulations, the thanks, if you will. And I'm going, oh, I guess I can do this after all. And I certainly hope I am for the organization.
I would say that you are. I would say you're doing.
I just write checks.
Just to find a job, as fine a job as Jim Nixon did, and it's been nice. I think that Jim Nixon has been there for counsel for you if you need it, and that Tim Holmeyer too.
Oh.
I think is just an incredible person, and is there for the Bloomers.
Well,
too,
and Tim's relationship with Bloom is a credit to our organization as much as it is to Tim. As for someone who is not even a member of Bloom, for him to contribute and volunteer what he does for us because he likes us.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good. Hey, we do good here. We do good here.
We do. And you and Mike are a fine addition to this church family, and we're very lucky to have people like you who really participate in Bloom, because that's what it takes to grow a congregation and to have a good, strong, healthy congregation that does the type of work that we do, which is justice minded. And as I learn more and more about UCC, I become more and more impressed about the organization itself.
Well, perhaps my background, being born and bred UCC, to me it is perfectly natural for the lay members of the congregation to run the congregation.
Yeah.
It is our church. And that is different than many other denominations. Mike is of a Catholic background. That clearly is a top-down type polity.
Yes, so is Lutheran.
I'm not going to say which one is better than the other, but I'm just simply used to a church where you don't just belong. You belong and you get involved as much as you possibly can, and you try not to use, I don't have time. Nobody does. But we all have, again, abilities to give, and that's again something else that impresses me about coming to Bloom, is the involvement by so many people who are having fun being involved.
Yes.
Call from.
So maybe that's a plea to other people who have chosen at this point not to become too involved. You don't know what you're missing. I mean, this is fun.
Yeah, well, and I go back to this slogan, and I say this a lot, and I share it a lot. Volunteer, the life you change could be your very own.
Yeah.
And that is volunteering within your congregation in your church, or volunteering within the community. And Bloom really promotes both of those things. And that's a wonderful thing about UCC system is it does expect its members or invite its members to be more active in how the church functions. And it's vastly different than Catholic and Lutheran, which is, like you said, top down. But it's so much more engaging, and I think our faith is stronger, and we understand the Bible and the stories in the Bible better when we are more engaged.
I agree. I've always believed from a faith perspective, it's easy to say, I believe. It's much harder to say, I follow.
Yes.
And to be a member of a congregation, a UCC congregation, and particularly one like Bloom, following means you're going to be involved.
Yes. Yes.
And just sitting back and, I believe, and saying that's enough, well, at least it doesn't appear to be for Bloomers.
No, it's not, and it's never been enough for Bloomers, and that is the wonderful thing about Bloom in the Desert Ministries. So we've got people that do want to be involved and be engaged, and I think sometimes we get people that seek us out just for that. I know there are members that have seen us at different rallies and functions like that, and that's kind of where I first noticed Bloom, was when they participated and were a part of the community. And so, Bloom has got a little something for everybody. We can be involved as heavily as we want, or we can be involved as much as the donation that we write every week. And that's okay.
Every bit of that's appreciated.
Yes.
As someone who counts the money, trust me.
Well, Jack, I'd like to thank you for joining us today for AfterBloom, and I hope you all have enjoyed this little talk with Jack McClellan, and you've learned a little bit about him, and maybe one of these times we can get his husband Mike on AfterBloom and have him tell us a little bit about himself.
Take some time off work.
Yes. Yes, if he ever gets some time off or takes time off. But thank you for joining us today.
And thank you all for even being interested enough to listen to me.
We love to hear Bloomers' stories. They're always fascinating because, as they say about UCC, once you visited one UCC, you visited one UCC. And as they say about a Bloomer is when you've talked to one Bloomer, you've talked to one Bloomer. There are so many stories out there from our Bloom members to be told, and I'm hoping we'll get to share a lot of them this summer.
And I'll second that. When Russ put it out there, they needed somebody to, if you want to, I'll be happy to. So let me see, I'll be the first one to kick it off. Go ahead, tell Russ you're interested.
All righty. All right, thank you everybody for joining us, and we will see you next time on AfterBloom, and you have a blessed day.
Take care.
We're out.
Well, that was easy.